Today's video is dedicated to Casey McClara. Thank you, Casey. Thalisse Reverent Medium versus Azami Lady of Scrolls. And that is a lot of mana in our opening hand. If I get rid of that, I'm going to draw into a non-lander, so I'm going to try my luck here. We'll just arbitrarily throw out the Tainted Field. And then our opponent goes into some ramp in Sky Diamond. We'll get out the Field of the Dead. Now I'm going to play out the Mana Crypt now. It means that we'll take some extra bolts here and there potentially, but it's a lot less likely that they will counter here. And then we might as well get out the Skull Clamp for the exact same reason. Don't think blue is going to have much chance of getting rid of our artifacts. Not until Kaldheim comes out anyway. Then it is Fate Spinner for the blue player. So we have to skip our upkeep, combat phase or main phase. I think we can get away with skipping combat this time because we don't have a creature in play. Let's just play a swamp and we'll get into our commander here. And then our opponent follows suit by casting their commander and tapping down both the creatures during their turn in order to draw a card. This time I think we can skip the draw step because we have Skull Clamp and a token producer in play. So we'll get down another land, take us a step closer to field, and we'll cast the Lingering Souls. Then let's go for the clamp onto one of the spirits. Argument to be made here for us going in for Toxic Deluge straight away. But I want to try and land as much damage on my opponent as possible. Alright, and we get into a couple more token producers, that's good. So I'm going to go for Lingering Souls here and try and make a bunch of spirits by the end of the turn. And we'll swing in with our commander. A Soul Ring from our opponent into a Lightning Greaves. And protecting their commander with that. Then tapping it down for a card. Tapping down the other spirit as well. And that takes them into Jace Vryn's Prodigy. I think we can punish our opponent with a Toxic Deluge here, assuming that they don't draw into a counterspell, which I'm assuming they have done with 3 blue mana held up. We'll skip the draw step again here. And then play a land, because I don't think we're playing the Felidar Retreat. Let's swing in with everything. Land a bunch of damage on them. Knock them down to 17. And then we'll clamp some tokens, might as well if we're going to lose them to the board wipe. Okay, Demonic Tutor. I think we try and land the Toxic Deluge first, and then we can always tutor for an answer. So we'll put 2 life into that. Oh wow, and surprisingly that manages to land, so that should set our opponent back nicely. So let's attempt this. So let's, instead of Demonic Tutor, go for Raise the Alarm, and we'll have some tokens to swing in with next turn. Now it is a Staff of Nim from our opponent, and they take us off of a Spirit straight away. And we get into Path to Exile, so probably worth holding that up for the Azami before it gets the Greaves on it. Let's play out the enchantment before we make a land, and then we'll get down the Scrub land. And we're only 1 land away from triggering Field of the Dead. We'll make a cat with that. Maybe next turn go for the plus counters. Then we'll go through to combat, swing in, see if they've got anything for us. Apparently not. So in that case, I think we can clamp the human, get into a land and martial coup. That is a fetch land though. So we should be able to trigger field quite nicely with that. Let's go for this Demonic Tutor. I don't think they've got any counter magic, surprisingly. And I'm not entirely sure what to grab here. I think we'll go with Old Faithful. We'll just go for Elspeth, Sun's Champion. And hold up the Path to Exile. They draw an extra card with Staff of Nin. And now casting Void Mage Prodigy, which is 2, sacrifice a wizard, counter a target spell. Luckily there's no other spirits in play. Otherwise that would have been a big problem for us. And now it's Venser, Shaper, Savant. Not sure what they're going to bounce here. Probably yeah, I think before that lands, we'll get rid of the Void Mage, just so that they can't counter anything. Obviously, they're not going to counter the Exile, they'll just take the land here. And Venser comes in, bouncing the enchantment. I'd rather they did that than the Commander, to be honest, so yeah, I'm not entirely against that. Staff of Ning gets rid of another spirit, and the Greaves goes on to Venser. Okay, now we get into Anguished Unmaking. I think we can just get out the enchantment again, Felidar Retreat, and then we'll play the fetch. Field of the Dead. Oh, actually, should have put the triggers on differently there. We're going to miss a plus counter on one of our zombies. I don't think it's going to matter, but yeah, we should have put Felidar Retreat on the stack first. Let's crack the Bloodstained Maya and do it properly this time. Shocking the Godless Shrine and Felidar Retreat on the stack first, a bunch of plus counters. And then we'll clamp the Flyer just so that we can force more damage through. That does get +1 to its power, which might be relevant here. Swing in with everything. They all have Vigilance thanks to the enchantment. They are chump blocking our Commander. Alright, and we take them down to 0 exactly, so the Skull Clamp power was actually relevant there. That was a pretty one-sided one, there wasn't a lot of interaction there, so I think we should squeeze another game in. Now this one I forgot to hit record on, like a dope, so luckily the replay function on Magic Online decided to actually work this time. We're up against Obeka, and it actually turned out to be a pretty interesting video, so you all know that I don't like to use the replay function on Magic Online, but I think it's okay if we only do it every now and then, and it's an interesting game. So obviously just playing a few lands to start off with. Our opponent goes in for Talisman of Indulgence on turn 2, and we will crack this for a Godless Shrine in tapped, I think. Getting to Field of the Dead. So I decide to just get out the Cruel Celebrant here. Argument to be made for us just going for Field of the Dead and then Oketra's Monument the turn after, because Cruel Celebrant isn't doing anything for us for a while yet. Our opponent ramps even further with a Mind Stone and then holds up blue mana, which is worrying. I want them to use their counter magic if they have it, so I just decide to go for the Oketra's Monument here. And they do have counter magic in the mana drain, so just deciding to ping them for 1. That also maximised our mana as well, so we only have to put 2 mana into a Talisman next turn if we decide to ramp. They will get 3 mana from the mana drain though. Starting off their turn with a Halimar Depths, reorganise the top 3 cards of their library. And then it is a Hellkite Courser. That's a really good one for Obeka, because they can have their commander enter from the command zone. It gains haste and then goes back at the end of the turn, but they can stop extra turn effects in Obeka. Not something I could squeeze into my eedi-H list, but yeah, that's a really fun one in the more casual to high power type settings, and there we go, we can see them ending the turn early. We get into Call of the Coppercoat, so clearly just deciding to get into Talisman of Hierarchy and then making use of the extra time we've got to play the tap land in Field of the Dead. I do have the basics mixed in here, so it should be easy enough to consistently get into Field of the Dead triggers if the game goes long enough. Prismatic Lens for more ramp from the Grixis player, and cracking the Mind Stone for card draw, swinging in at us for 9. So we're really going to get stomped if we don't do anything about this. We draw into Fetid Heath and just playing that straight away. And I think I go for God Eternal Oketra here to try and encourage more counter magic. Yeah, going for God Eternal Oketra. Really don't mind sticking that, obviously, but I don't think we're going to, and they go for Glorious End, so that's a risky play for them because we could have gone for Source to Plowshares onto Obeka and they'd lose at the end of this turn. Clearly just hedging their bets. And I was thinking maybe they have a free counter spell in hand anyway. Swinging in with the 6/5 dragon. They've played Hedron Archive this turn, and there goes the glorious end. They end the turn with that on the stack so they don't lose the game. More token production for us. Really don't want to lose our commander because it's imperative that she stays in play, so I'm just baiting out cards to counter spells here. They've only got one left in hand. I wasn't thinking they'd have counter magic, but just in case, I still decided to play around it, and there we go, they had a counter spell. Looks like a very, very good set of draws from our opponent, but they are empty-handed now at least. Not going to block with the little chump creature, so decided to just swing in with that. Drawing 2 cards with Hedron Archive, making use of both of their rocks. And then Felwar Stone. So still 1 card in hand. I think they made a land there as well. And then we draw into another land, so we just go for Field of the Dead triggers. Noteworthy that we haven't cracked the Arid Mesa yet as well. And I feel quietly confident that well, I'm hoping, I'm not feeling confident, but I just decided to go for Thalisse here because we don't really have much of a choice, and luckily it got down, so we'll make another token with Field of the Dead and Arid Mesa. Going for the Scrubland, and then it's in for Midnight Haunting. I don't think they'll get another creature down for Call of the Coppercoats, but we're guaranteed 2 creatures with Midnight Haunting and Call of the Coppercoats, and I think the flyers are going to be relevant against that dragon, so obviously going for more spirits here. We'll swing in with the Aristocrat. Then Thalisse triggers at the end of the turn. We get 4 additional spirits because we made 4 tokens there. And now it's just a case of hoping that we can chump the dragon and that it doesn't get trample. So they swing in there. We are just going to chump. We could gang up on it to get rid, but I just decide to leave as many tokens in play as possible because we do need to swing back at them. And then going for Last Chance, I was amazed at the draws that they had this game. Last Chance, a really good one to give them an extra turn. But it does rely on them keeping Obeka in play. We're tapped out, so it's likely that they're going to keep their commander. 1 Power Stone, even more ramp. And then the dragon coming back in, so just going to chump it again. We do have to be wary of trample, but I don't think an instant speed trample spell is something we're going to see in Obeka. Gaining incremental bits of life from the Cruel Celebrant. And then another extra turn card in Final Fortune. That goes infinite with the Isochron Scepter, but clearly they haven't drawn into it. And then they have to tap down Obeka to Last Chance. Noteworthy that Thalisse would not trigger at the end of their turn. So if we were to make spirits with Midnight Haunting on their turn, we wouldn't get the extra spirits from Thalisse. Anyway, the dragon swings back in at us, we chump it again. And we're now out of range of being one-shot by the dragon at least. And Final Fortune triggering this time. So with 1 card in hand, we have to hope that we can do something here, and we get into Marsh Flats, which actually isn't a terrible card with Field Online. So play that and crack it straight away. And get into a Snow Swamp. And then we need to start swinging back at them, so we'll take in our commander, the 2 zombies, a spirit and an aristocrat. I want to leave a few spirits back, just in case we don't get any more at the end of the turn, because Thalisse goes down to a Pongify or, well, any destruction spell. And then before the end of the turn, we'll just go call the Coppercoats now, because that will give us more spirits at the end of the turn. So making more spirits there. They just played out a tap land. Doesn't look like they've got anything, and Vault of the Archangel is another great draw. Not usually happy to top deck lands, but got a couple of good lands in a row there. So this is going to be a big life swing now. Death Touch and Lifelink for 4 mana on a land. And that goes on all of our creatures. So now that makes blocks difficult, and it obviously gives us that life swing I was just talking about as well. Going with the zombies, the humans, and a few spirits. And decide not to take Thalisse in. And I wonder here if they didn't realise about the death touch. Deciding to block the zombies anyway. I never worked it out. Maybe they had to block there. Cruel Celebrant knocks them down to 3 anyway. We jump up to 22. So we're looking pretty good here. We get even more spirits at the end of the turn. Or actually just the 1 from playing the land. And our opponent does the right thing there in drawing another card, but the writing's on the wall there. Unfortunately, they didn't get to pull it out of the bag there. They, given just one more counterspell for our Thalisse, they probably would have had us there. In fact, I guarantee they would have done, because that just would have been a turn too late. It was really imperative that we got the spirits into play to block that dragon, and after that we could just try and incrementally gain some kind of board state, and luckily managed to pull this one out of the bag. So be sure to let me know if you want to see more from Thalisse. Looking towards Kaldheim now, so I imagine that that's what you are all looking forward to as well. But let me know if you want to see more from this anyway. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.